สวัสดีครับอาจารย์
สวัสดีค่ะอาจารย์
สวัสดีค่ะทุกคนค่ะ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
สวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับ
กลับเท้าท่านอาจารย์ค่ะ Please begin.
Zita, I don't know if you're there at the end of the last discussion.
No sound. I think your microphone is off, Sarah.
No wonder no one was replying to anything I said. Zita, I don't know if you're there at the end of the last discussion. You just brought up a couple of points and questions at the very end, and we said we would discuss it more at the beginning today about the first and second noble truths and why birth and sorrow and so on are mentioned. And then there was something about politicians or something, I don't know. But if you'd like to bring it up again, then Ajahn will have more of a chance to respond.
Yes, well, I can't quite remember the track that I was on, but I have another question about, I heard on Saturday that Sanya was the nimitta maker, and that sort of made sense to me, but I'd like to hear a little bit more because I didn't listen to the whole discussion. So can you or Achan explain a little bit more about what's actually meant by nimitta, Sanya as nimitta maker?
I think that we learned that everything is there now unknown, right? To understand who's the Buddha, if there's not yet the understanding of what is there now, it's impossible to understand the one who has enlightened the truth, all of the truth. Absolutely. That's why talking about sanya, the word, but it means moment of marking and remembering what is there now. Thus, that characteristic is now appearing as is now marking that object. See, in just a moment and then gone. Thinking about a moment is impossible to understand how rapidity is just there, only very shortly and then gone. That's why what is there is not just only one. And Buddha taught about the details of each moment. For example, there is no experiencing of anything through the sense door, the five sense door and the mind door. But there must be that, the reality which arises, unknown that is there, arising and falling away, and experiencing. See, whatever is there is not just that which arises only one, but there are many together just right now. But this is not the moment when it does not experience any object through the sensor and mind. But it's now seeing, see, and what is there? Unknown. Who knows? That's why they begin to understand what it's meant that the enlightened one of Panya, of the highest understanding, the truth of the absolute truth, as it is, just one by one. For example, if we don't talk about sanya or now, it marks and remembering what is there. No one knows that. because only the object which is experienced is there, unknown about what which experience it as chief one, and the marking one, and the feeling one are there all together. That's why learning to understand what is meant by enlightenment or enlightened one. It means that the right understanding, the highest one, which can experience directly the truth. Otherwise, there's no word to talk about it as it is just right now. So now we use the word now. That is sanya, unknown. So when it's known, it's not just only one moment. Impossible. According to the process from Bhavanka, no experiencing through the sense of three at all. And the moment when it's there. And where is sanya? See, it's there unknown. It's there unknown. It's there unknown. Each moment of experiencing just right now. That's why when it appears through the doorways, we learned that it cannot be just the moment of Panchatavara Vachana is there with Sanya is known because it falls away. As soon as it has fallen away, no one can stop the condition which the chitta which has gone, condition the next moment instantly, very rapidly. So how can everything appear just one at a time? Impossible. That's why in the Tipitaka, and we learn to understand the world as it is, as what is experienced directly, as each one as it is. For example, Sanya just marks now. No idea, no thought about it, because what is there is not known as just that which is experienced. And what about those which arises together and experience that object in different manners, different quality, different characteristic? And sanya is just a reality which is there, but unknown, covered up. That's why if our realities, the five khandhas, are not known as it is one by one, yet they all mix up and have the idea of something, even right now. How come for sanya not to appear just one? See, nothing can appear just only one because it's so very, very fast arising and falling away, because the succession of the next one is there. So soon no one can understand. Only Panya begin to develop the understanding of the truth of this moment, which is the same as any moment, without conditions that cannot arise at all. Even what we call sanya or vedana, see, that's why we live in the world of nimitta, not understanding the moment which is conditioned to arise and roll on so very rapidly by conditions. No one is there. And ignorance take that for something because of the nimitta, even sanya, even feeling, even its pleasant feeling, and pleasant feeling is there. Until the reality, which does not have nimitta, because it does not arise, is there. That's why the truth is that it's the world of nimitta from life to life, unknown the truth. That's why beginning to understand what is meant by enlightenment, it's the understanding of this very moment as it is, just one at a time. And even it's one, it's not the single one, because that cannot be known, because they have to succeed one another so very rapidly before no one can do anything, because actually there's no one. No one can make it separated. No one can have just one arise to be object. They are all there. That's why even right now, live in darkness of memory, wrong sanya, taking what is there as something from life to life. But in truth, it's not there anymore. Just arises and falls away in split second. So beginning to understand what we are hearing about is the absolute truth. So true because it's not known as it is taught by the enlightenment, that is the truth of it. Just one at a time appearing, but that is still the nimitta, the sanya, the marks, the image of that which arises and remember. Because what is that just a moment ago, gone completely, never to return until it can appear, because it arises and falls away. So much enough that it can be known one by one, right now. Otherwise, we don't really know what is the point of listening to the absolute truth. It's so true, and it can be directly experienced, but there are so many different qualities or realities. When attachment is there, see, instead of seeing the danger of how to be there on and on and on and on endlessly, just to the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and then gone forever, never to arise again. That is not known. That's why it's the object of clinging, of ignorance, not understand the truth of it. So take it for something, and shorter than it, and shorter than it, and shorter than that, only to the nimitta of one reality at a time. Just to develop the understanding, whether it's true or not, that's all in life, in samsara. Nothing to do. Life goes on by conditions as usual, unexpectedly each moment. What would be next moment? Unknown. But it's there instantly, all the time. It seems like there is someone or something from the nimitta, the shape and form, which without that, which arises and falls away so very rapidly. How can it be something with shape and form? Because it's just only one reality.
And as Ajahn mentioned, Azita, there, sanya marks the object, and we've heard that said many times. And a simile is given in the teachings, I'm not sure where, of the woodsman who goes into the forest to select the trees or logs that he's going to make use of. And he puts a mark on them so that later on he can come back and gather them up. And that mark, the Pali term for that mark is nimitta. And so it's possible in the context of sanya as the nimitta maker that it's referring to the mark that, or the means by which sanya marks the object. So it may be a nimitta maker in that sense, that it's the marker of the object so that it can be recalled. So that would, I think, be a slightly different use of the term nimitta than when we talk about the nimitta that occurs by virtue of the rapid rising and falling away of realities.
Yes, I think it's just referring to the function of sanya, the nimitta maker. It's just the making of a sign. Each time sanya arises, it makes a sign, it marks what is experienced and remembers it. So it's just referring to sanya's functions so that it can later be recalled.
Right, okay, yes. Well, that makes sense. I think when I heard it on Saturday evening, it was like, now I understand. But it's just jumping on something that you think, now I've got more understanding. But that explanation you gave, John, I remember that sutta or comment. And yes, so yeah, okay. That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Ajahn.
Without sanya making its mark, making its sign to be remembered, there could be no thinking about anything. But it depends on sanya to mark and remember, to condition the thinking about anything, what is seen, what is heard, what is thought about now.
And it's why sanya is a khandha on its own, I guess, because it really is important
That's why we have to understand what is meant by khanda, see. Just sanya and then vaikhanda. Vedana and vaikhanda, see. Not the word, but the truth. For example, it's there, but without word, who can understand it? But there can be the reality which is there that can be known little by little at this moment. For example, we talk about the characteristic of sanya, the way it marks or makes things known. But it's now here and now, see, until it's known as it is, as no one and nothing, which is different from that which is experiencing, the chief of experiencing, like Chitta now sees what is in it by Chitta experiences it. And Sanya is there, marks it and remembers it naturally, but it doesn't show up. So when we just talk about what are there, which are covered up, to know what are there as so many realities conditioned to arising together and then fall away. That's why we learn about when we talk about the one who went to in the forest and so on. It's right now here. See, without the function of marking, how can that is known as the shape and form and the idea of something? So it has to be understanding, no words about it, that it's now to be studied, to be known, little by little.
So if there wasn't any sanya marking and remembering, there'd be no clinging. But there's no point in going to there because there is sanya. You a moment ago you mentioned covered up, Ajahn. What is covered up and covered up by what?
Right now, see, everything we are talking about, it's about right now, which can be known little by little, whether it's there or not. For example, you are thinking about sanya. Well, sanya is there, right?
Right.
Because of that does not show up as it is, only the reality which marks, see. Right now, there are many things around, a curtain, a chair, and everything, see. Is that not by experiencing and mark and remember, arising and then falling away? Otherwise, there is no such thinking about shape and form and idea about it. It's there every time, but it is not known because its characteristic does not appear, does not show up as it marks now. That which marks is there. So before the eradication of the idea of self can be completely studied and attained, it has to be so very natural because sanya is so natural right now. And in order to understand sanya, no selection, but remember that it's not I or anyone at all. If there is no sanya, no marks and remembers what is there at all. See, that's why it's there unknown in a second, split second. So how can it be known? By consider just one characteristic at a time and understand it without understanding the moment when it's there. It's impossible to understand it, no matter how much we think about it, read about it, and understand about it little by little, intellectually. But what we're talking about is all there now. But what shows up to be known? Feeling is there. Sanya is there. Phasa is there. Cetana is there. Unknown. That's why we begin to understand what is meant by enlightenment, or the enlightened one. The panya, which is beyond anyone at all, can understand the truth of that which is now, as the person had enlightened and taught the other to know the truth, to study that what we are hearing now is just about what is there now, depending on, now we're talking about sanya, how much understanding of sanya, just that which marks, see, because now it knows what is there? No word at all, but it's there as something. So that is the moment of marking or experiencing or remembering what is there as shape and form. Because without shape and form, how can it mark? But when it's not shape and form yet, even just a characteristic which is hard, or which is the feeling, which is that which thinking and so on, is that to be known as that moment is conditioned. And what are there? Without sanya, can there be such thought at moment of thinking? So even thinking and even stretching one's hand, whatever is done in a day, without that reality which can experience an object, so many different realities, can that be what we say I, or what is there, or a day, what is done? So it's there unknown. And when we talk about show up, it is just like when panya is enough to understand it, because now it's there, but panya is not enough, no right understanding of it. How can it know what is what? There are so many things now and no understanding of anyone. So how can there be the moment of understand each one as it is? Only the name and remember, but cannot understand each one as it is, because only the word is there. But now we are talking about that which is there and learn to understand what is meant by right understanding of the truth, stage by stage. Because now hardness appear, but the arising and falling away of the nimitta of hardness is not known. It doesn't show up, because even it's there, ignorance is there. So how can ignorance penetrate the truth of what is there now as it is, as nothing? It's there and then gone. And if there's not such understanding, how can there be the Ariya Satya, the first one, seeing the danger of the arising and falling away? Because now even they are arising and falling away, they are unknown, but they are known as different things to be clung to, as something. And what is that? I see, I think, I like, I decide. The reality which experiences are taken for self because of its characteristic does not appear as it is, one by one. And this is true of any moment right now. To study, to understand what is there now, is the point of understanding what is the absolute truth, the Ariya Satya. Nobody can change at all. And life goes on like this from life to life. It's not just rushed to see the danger, but before it's so sincere and truly seeing the danger, it needs more and more understanding. And what is seen is just daily life when it's there as usual. But the understanding, the development of understanding begin to think about it or to understand it little by little. Even it's so pleasant, the sound begin to be just only sound to see that it's gone. So all depends on the accumulation, the development of understanding, not just the word, but the reality right now as is taught by the words. So each word should be understood as the representation of the reality right now. For example, seeing, see. We don't think of that which is the object of seeing. We don't think of that which is like the object, but the seeing, the reality which now sees. Otherwise, we just keep on thinking that they are different ones. Chitta is not Cetasikas and so on. But now it's different. Chitta cannot be Cetasika. It's there. Begin to understand the truth first and then develop understanding until it's there. Very, very truly, very, very gradually, very, very satya and adhidana and patience and viriya to let go, nekama, the clinging to the idea of self because of ignorance of what is there now. See, we talk about what are there now. See, but is there anyone appearing? It's now appearing, just one, but no understanding of it as it is. Is there I? Is there something? So we learn to understand it. That is sanya. Beginning to think about it, beginning to understanding it. But it takes quite a long, long time to develop the truth of that which just arises en masse and remembers, not that which the chief of experiencing the object. Otherwise, right understanding will not develop at all, because just thinking in different ways of this and that, or even the words in the Tipitaka. But the words represent the truth of now. Seeing is a reality, but it's not alone. So it is ayatana, it's there with other reality, which has to be there. If they do not arise, how can they be there? In a moment, and then gone altogether, instantly, as nimitta, see. So how much ignorance is of this moment and every moment, but the teachings of the truth from the enlightened one can be considered and begin to understand the truth as no thing and no one and nothing at all. Because just a moment ago is nothing now. What is there as shape and form is not now. Different ones all the time. And this is the only way to let go ignorance and the clinging to the self and things. So whatever is there and whatever will be, just by conditions, less clinging, less thinking of and worrying about it. What is there is there. No matter it's pleasant or unpleasant, just by conditions, in a moment and then gone.
Yes, and this actually links up with the point you brought up last time, Azita, about the first noble truth, the birth, the sorrow, the despair, the suffering, and so on, and how without craving, there can't be any dukkha at all. And Jan's point that each word as we read or hear about is to let go of the idea of self, little by little, which is covered up by ignorance. The truth is covered by ignorance. So without craving, no continuation, no dukkha of any kind, no arising and falling away of any khandhas at all.
Yes, I remember now, and it does follow on from what Achan was just saying, in that I was, as Achan was speaking, I was thinking that each moment that sanya marks falls away really, really quickly, and yet they're still clinging to the feelings, the thoughts, whatever comes from that, you know, the conditions that give us the idea of me in this moment. And I think that's what had brought that question up last week, that it suddenly, well, it occurred to me why there are all those words for the first noble truth. And then, you know, we cling to stuff all the time. Well, most of the time is clinging, but it's gone. As Achan reminds us, it's gone already. And it's in my thinking, it's pointless clinging, but there's no stopping, because there's not enough understanding. And there's also, well, it's just conditions. The craving has not been eradicated. So there's still conditions for craving to arise and crave to whatever. And even to things that have fallen away and never will arise again.
And without understanding the Dhammas themselves, even when we hear it or read it, it's still the idea, like we were discussing about conditions last time, the idea that I don't know it, or I know it, or I get that, or I don't get that. It's I comes in all the time. So whatever we read, it's to let go of that idea of self that's studying, or self that knows, or self that experiences anything, because they are just khandhas, different realities arising and falling away by many different conditions, that's all.
Even just listening to in the discussion, it's like I want to hang on to any little conversation that makes sense to me, but that's an impossible thing as well, just by conditions that will be remembered at some other later date, or maybe never, as you mentioned last week. So it is just a matter of, as Ajahn just mentioned, patience and, the paramis, important. Thank you.
I trying to hang on, or trying to catch it, or trying to remember what I've heard comes in all the time, yes. And that is the ignorance that covers up the truth. Last time, Alberto and Tam were both bringing up the topic of Pakatupanisya Pachya, I think, and the Pachya, the condition, as we discussed, is any reality, and the Patyupana, that which is conditioned, is any nama, any chitta or chaitasika, which arises afterwards. So Tam was bringing up a question about proximate cause and Pakatupanisya Pachya, but the Patyupana has to be after the arising of the Pachya in this case. Like when talking about seeing, we talked about how seeing is conditioned by karma, by visible object that's seen, by the eye sense, and by Pakatupanisya Pachya, the accumulated tendencies which condition the seeing at this moment. But it's quite a deep topic. And I thought it was a good point, that helpful when Ajahn was saying that understanding Pachya, like even second Vipassana Jnana, it was enough to understand this moment as not self. Otherwise, again, it's just strong clinging again and again to remembering this or that detail or name for collecting the information, but that is not understanding the conditioned nature of seeing or any other reality at this moment. I don't know if anyone else has anything they'd like to discuss on this topic or any others.
Ajahn was mentioned, talked about Pachaya, different, can be either direct condition or indirect condition. Maybe Ajahn can explain more about this two different way of conditioning realities, the way that reality is conditioned other realities. Thank you, Ajahn.
Ajahn, we're not hearing you. Thank you. Microphone, please.
I forgot to turn on the mic. Please say again about the point.
Yes, about you were talking about conditions, and you were saying that there can be condition, reality can condition directly or indirectly. Indirectly, the condition, the reality can be conditioned directly or indirectly. I'm not sure. I think maybe it's like because we also talked about aramana pachaya and how it doesn't really make condition the arising of the object, doesn't condition the arising of the citta and cittadika. I'm not sure. Maybe don't remember. I'm not sure.
Yes, when we talk about conditions, no matter what condition, is there anything then or just nothing, and then there is just only thinking about condition? Or what is there? See, there must be a reality. And what is there? It's conditioned to arise. It's conditioned to think about it. So there are so many conditions. Without anything appearing, can there be any condition? So many different conditions, even while one is sleeping and while one is wakening, as long as there are still conditions for the reality to arise, no matter it is that which can experience or that which cannot experience. So just think about what is there in life from moment of birth. It's there. How come to be the moment of experiencing, even it does not experience the six doorways object, but it's there already arising to experience an object, because what we mean by a reality, that it has to be real, and it's there too. Otherwise, even it's real, why is it? But it's there now, it's real. So now we're talking about condition, but we don't know what is there yet. So how can we understand that as it is conditioned to just arise? See, just arise, not out of the blue. There must be conditions unknown. That's why Buddha taught about the different conditions, even in just a moment of only one object. For example, there is seeing right now. See, we just talk about seeing, but if there's no seeing, can there be anything to be seen? Each word, when there is ignorance, no understanding of the complex of the conditions, which just condition that object and then gone instantly. See how fast it is. So it cannot be known until the development of panya to consider it. And depending on how much panya, at what level, Samma Sambuddho, Paccekabuddho, or Savako, see, everything is not self, but right understanding is there, opposite to ignorance. So when there's no understanding, what is there? Ignorance. But when there is understanding, what is seeing? See, how come can it arise without the eye base, without that which impinge on it, and it just arises to see only that which impinge on it, no shape, no form yet? Is this not the moment of seeing, just seeing? See, beginning to understand what is there and learn to understand what is that condition the eye base, what is that condition the seeing, different objects or different conditions, what is there to be that which is experienced by seeing. different realities unknown. Each one is conditioned. Who can condition the I-base to arise? Anyone? Or there must be condition for each moment of each different person. We take it for being as person because now we understand that even we use the term person, it always means realities, no matter what word. So for that person, the eye is blue, the other is brown, the other is black. What conditioned that? See, everything is conditioned, unknown, until it's that directly experienced by the enlightenment. That's why even right now, who experience the I-base? Not at all. It's there as condition for seeing to arise. And without that which can impinge on the I-base, how can there be seeing? And how can what is there seen now appear without seeing? So each moment is conditioned with that is enough understanding of what is there as not self, would have pointed out the condition for each one. For example, what condition the I-base? The I-base itself cannot experience anything, but it is the reality which the what is seen now impinges on it, but it does not experience that. It's just that which is impinged on. See, no world at all, and no one at all, just a moment when it's there. And seeing is there, see, and the object is there, depending on understanding to let go the very, very strong accumulation of I, of things, from that which is seen, no matter when and where and what. Otherwise, it cannot be the sharp understanding to let go the wrong understanding of self at all. That's why each movement can be studied more, a little more about what is there first. And at this very moment of what is there, what is it? That which experiences. Otherwise, the object is not seen. It cannot appear. But now it appears. So what conditions the appearance of that which is seen? Because there must be the reality which experience and see it. So everything can be studied to understand the truth, little by little. And now it is a parami, and it's not bhavana. It's that moment of developing right understanding from the very beginning, the intellectual understanding, to lead to the moment when it directly understands what is there, just right now, as usual. But panya is there. Not as not understanding the truth of it. It's only a reality which appears at that very moment. Nothing can appear together as two objects at a time. Only one, and it has its own characteristic. And without its arising and falling away, can it be there? But it's not there all the time. So what's right and what's wrong? What is the truth of that very moment? To understand everything there as it is, as no one, no thing, and no self, little by little. So naturally, because understanding that even right understanding now is not me or anyone at all, it's just a reality which develops from hearing, considering more and more until it getting close to what is there, the characteristic which is now experiencing, until that reveals itself, show up as itself as no thing and no one at all. That's meant by nothing, Dhamma, reality, conditioned, arising and falling away. The truth is there right now.
And Alberto, on the direct and indirect, like now, any lobha now, it conditions more lobha. Strong clinging conditions more and more strong clinging. So this is directly conditioning the accumulation of that reality more and more. Understanding now conditions more understanding directly. But also by Pakatu Panisya Pachya, even the ignorance that conditioned this birth is a condition for understanding, because without life, no understanding could accumulate. So indirectly, even the ignorance and clinging that conditioned the first moment of life is a condition for understanding. So this is indirectly. And someone asked about clinging or aversion as condition for understanding. Indirectly, it's a condition, but directly the understanding now is a condition for more understanding. And on the aramana, so for a moment of seeing, the visible object and the eye sense must have already arisen in order for the seeing to arise and experience that visible object. But at a moment of thinking about visible object, it's just thinking about the idea. So the idea hasn't arisen beforehand. It's just that which is thought about. So it's just the aramana because it's the object of thinking or the object of experiencing. So this is aramana pachi at this moment. The citta now has to experience an object, but we don't say the object is the condition for the experiencing. The concept is not the condition for the thinking, because if there's thinking about a pink elephant, there is no pink elephant. So it's the thinking that's accumulated to think of the pink elephant. It's not the pink elephant that has conditioned the thinking. It's just the object of experiencing at this moment.
Yeah, I was thinking also about the rupa being Akatupanisaya Pachaya for citta and cittajikas. Also might be also an indirect condition, because it needs also more direct conditions for citta and cittajika to arise, as you were saying, like accumulations and for the rising, maybe as an indirect condition is not for the rising, but for the like the support or something like that. I'm not sure. Just guessing.
Like the heat or the cold or anything can be a condition for understanding now. If it's so cold that one's so distracted, maybe it's a condition for just dosa instead of understanding, or the taste of the congee, maybe the rupa. If one hasn't eaten anything, then maybe too weak, no conditions for understanding. So anything can be indirect condition. It doesn't mean try to get the perfect temperature or the perfect food in order for understanding. That's not the right way. But as it happens, by what is suitable, what is sapaya, can be conditioned indirectly for any kind of citta now. Or it may be just a condition for attachment, who knows? So one can see that each moment of understanding, each moment of attachment now is conditioned by, in so many different ways, from so many different realities that have arisen and fallen away in the past to make up the experience at this very moment.
So what is seen, as in visible object is seen. Now that visible object, what is that conditioned by? That's conditioned by Dhamma, right? Is it also conditioned by that natural decisive support, accumulations. Do accumulations condition what is seen?
Seeing itself.
Seeing itself.
The seeing, not the visible object, the seeing itself has to be conditioned by eye sense, and the visible object has to have impinged on the eye sense and the past karma to condition the seeing, and the previous accumulated tendencies also. So many conditions to condition seeing at this moment.
Yes, I was thinking, because seeing, I mean, I understand intellectually that seeing, there's a lot of seeing in a day, a lot. Uncountable numbers of jittas arising seeing. So the object seen, okay, so what you just said is that seeing is conditioned by karma. So that's because it's a vipaka citta.
And that's why sometimes pleasant objects seen, sometimes unpleasant objects seen, or because of past karma, conditioning, seeing to see this or that object. And it also depends on pasa, what object pasa contacts, and the other chaitasikas that arise with it too. Because there are countless visible objects, so which object does pasa contact to condition seeing at that moment too?
Wow.
I'm seeing now quite different from a moment ago.
Yes,
And
like I said, there's trillions of seeing moments in a day. And I guess my question is, what is it that makes us focus on one particular thing? Is that the accumulations? We see, there is seeing, and then there's for example, this morning I went for a walk, and I live near a beautiful lake, and I stopped because the morning was so still. I was the only person around, and I just stood there looking and thinking, this is so beautiful. But maybe if I'd been walking somewhere else that wasn't so beautiful, I wouldn't have even bothered to stop and think about the beauty, blah, blah, blah. So that beautiful object, it might have been, it was beautiful for me, but it may not have been beautiful for someone else. So the fact that it was beautiful for me, is that accumulations? You know, I stopped to look and like and go, wow, that's beautiful.
And those moments of seeing are so brief, just a moment and then gone. But the accumulated liking and attachment and clinging to what's seen, and the story, building up the story because of sanya marking and remembering, conditioning the thinking and the enjoyment and what is beautiful, is all in the world of thinking. Because who knows at each moment, like right now, who knows whether it's a desirable or undesirable object seen, because it's gone so fast, not known. But the thinking about the stories about friends and the pleasant experiences and happy feeling and the thoughts about beautiful images and so on, it's all in the world of thinking concepts on account of the nimitta of what's actually being seen.
Back to our friend nimitta.
Yes, living in the world of nimitta.
Yeah, right, okay.
And good to know.
Yeah.
So you can walk and enjoy the scenery and so on, it's daily life, but good to know that actually mostly it's just the fantasy world of thinking.
And considering, you know, the state of some people in the world today, that yes, lucky, fortunate to have beautiful objects, but it's more fortunate to have the knowledge and wisdom to know not to cling. I do have one other question that came up. I read on DSG this morning, and it was
Before you go
about-
on to that, Leanne's trying to come in. Maybe she
Oh,
has something
okay,
more
no
on that
problem.
topic. Do you want to go ahead, Leanne, first? And
Yeah, thank
see if
you,
Jan
Sarah.
wants to follow, and then we come back to your next one, Sita.
Okay, just in line of the discussion that we was Azita brought up earlier, and I remember Sarah mentioned there's countless objects for Sanya to mark. No, not Sanya. I'm sorry. It was Fasa. It was Fasa. You said there's a countless objects, and we don't know which object for Fasa to come in contact in order for seeing to arise. My question is, does Manasikara has any role in influencing which object Fasa will come into contact to consider the seeing, for example?
I'd just make a brief comment and let Jan discuss more. So you're talking about Passa. So because I mentioned it depends on Passa, what object Passa contacts for seeing to arise. And like you say, other Chaitasikas like Manasikara also rising at each moment. And they all condition each other. They all have to support each other. So the Passa contacts the object and the Manasikara tends to it. So without all these 7 Chaitasikas, seeing cannot arise. So they condition each other by connaissance, by Sahajata Pachya, each playing its particular role. Let's see if Ajahn would like to add more to this topic or Azita's comments.
About what again, please? The point?
I think Leanne's question is because I'd mentioned when we're talking about the conditions for seeing that Passa also plays its role because it depends on which object Passa contacts as to whether the seeing arises, what seeing arises. So when we're talking about many different conditions, I mentioned Passa as another one. And Leanne asked, what about Manasikara too? So I think the question is about the role of different Chaitasikas at that moment of seeing and how they all have to arise to support and condition the seeing at this very moment.
That's why we learn to understand what is there in a moment of experiencing an object. Because you see that when we are talking about just seeing, we didn't talk about the citta before or after seeing it all. Just the moment of seeing, what is there? For example, there is the reality which experiences that which appears. Otherwise, without the eye base, there cannot be moment of experiencing what is there now. See, we just learn to understand what are there in a moment, because at moment of seeing, no idea about anything else at all. The seeing is there and it sees, right? When we talk about seeing, it cannot remember. It just performs the function of being the chief of experiencing that object, particular object, which impinge on the eye base. And what is there? Whatever arises cannot arise alone by itself. That's why no one knows. But the Buddha enlightened the truth. What are there to condition each other to arise together and experience the same object? Because when we talk about Passa, the reality which contact the object, the citta to the object, because Passa is the nama, the reality which experiences. If it cannot experience, how can it contact? It's not the bodily contact, but it's the reality which is there, condition the moment of experiencing that object by contacting. It cannot just perform the function of seeing itself, but it just performs the function of contacting what is there, but it does not perform the function of seeing. And the seeing itself, the citta which sees, cannot perform the function of phassa or contact. This is how very, very real every moment is, so very unknown, cannot be known as it is, because they are there together in a short moment, but phassa has to be there. That's why someone can hear the thunder, but while the other fast asleep, not hearing anything at all, because phassa does not contact such object to be experienced as hearing or even seeing right now. Even what is there arises and falls away in split seconds, and seems like there are so many things around, but different people see different things. Someone cannot see that which is in front because of thinking of the other, because of phassa. So we learn to understand that nothing can arise without its right conditions at all. For example, seeing right now, what is seen is because of phassa contact, that object for citta to experience it, arising together, but the one experiencing directly as the chief of experience, no doubt about the characteristic of the very different rupas which is seen. That's why some people understand what is there and some people cannot, but the seeing sees the same thing. That's why even the next moment is conditioned different from moment of seeing. So very quickly. So how can there be the understanding of what are there as phassa and of citta and of manasikara and of feeling and so on? That's why the enlightened one has enlightened the truth of everything perfectly, absolutely. That's why he taught about the truth of what is there, even right now, to be known. For what? To let go the wrong understanding of self and cling to that idea when it's just gone. Everything is gone. Nothing can stay at all. The first Ariya Satya, whatever arises falls away. Even just today, what about yesterday? The same, seeing, pleasant feeling, hearing, thinking, and so on. And today will be just now different from the one which has gone. But the same seeing, again, seeing cannot change. It says just arise to see, just arise to hear, just arise to think, just arise to like, on and on and on. What for? When just there in a split second moment only, and then gone. That's why right understanding is different from ignorance. And thinking, considering, how will it go? Never end at all, endlessly, just like sometimes present again and present again, like again, dislike again, praise again, and blame again, and so on. Very ordinary. Where are they? Not permanent at all. Only once in samsara and then never to return. But keep on rolling on like this, endlessly. See, for just a moment of pleasant feeling, a moment of unpleasant feeling of different objects through only 6 doorways. That's all. That's why do we study to learn about what are there in a moment, just to let go wrong understanding because of ignorance, not understanding the truth that it's not there anymore. Only such understanding will gradually eradicate the idea of self, but not yet eradicate the pleasantness of life until right understanding develops more and more. The same thing, but right understanding develops to see it's useless. What for? That's why don't hurry to be boring of life or so on and try so hard to get rid of it. It's impossible. Let the understanding performs its function. But when there's no understanding, there cannot be the understanding of the truth of anatta, nothing at all. just be there and then gone completely.
Thank you, Ajahn. From your explanation and Sarah's explanation, I kind of know that there are many different conditions for a moment of seeing or hearing. Like, for example, karma is one of that, right? But still, I want to go back to my original point that I made. I may not be very clear, but basically what I just want to know, I may not be able to know, but I kind of, want to understand a bit more whether, for example, from your example, like there's a thunderstorm, but some people may not hear it at all. So there are many different sounds and there are many different visible objects, here at the moment around us. But why only contact to a particular object or sound at a time? Why Phasa only do, have contact with particular object for a hearing or seeing to a particular hearing or seeing to arise at a particular moment? And I want to know whether any other Jatatika, for example, Manisikara, influence that, or actually there's a multiple factors, influencing that moment, and we can't understand at this moment because there's not enough understanding.
That's why we have to learn more about everything. For example, there is Phasa for sure. It cannot be changed to be different from. It is Phasa. But what is it? It is the reality which contact. But why are they different? Can it be cause or can it be result? As everyone think about Dhamma, it seems like what is Dhamma is known or understood, but actually what is the truth of it? Is it Phasa, Dhamma? See, begin to understand the truth of each reality, which each word represents each one. For example, Phasa is not Dhamma, see, but can Phasa be Kusala? Can Phasa be Akusala? Can Phasa be Vipaka? And can it be Kiriya? Not Kusala, not Akusala at all. That's why at this very moment, it cannot be known until there is the understanding of a reality, beginning from understand that it's there as not self. Like Phasa is not Chitta, it's not like, it just contact. And how come? When it is Vipaka, the result of Karma, can it have freedom to contact by its choice, to choose this and that to be object of Phasa? Impossible, because each moment is conditioned by many conditions. When it is moment to experience such object through eyes, no one can change. Instantly, unexpectedly, it's that seen already. Accident on the street and so on. See, no expectation at all. That's why to understand the truth of actually, there's nothing to be conditioned by anyone at all. Because actually, conditions are conditions. There are many conditions and it has its own conditions. For Phasa, it is a condition too, as ahara pajaya. Like it will bring all dhammas to that object which experiences at that very moment when it contacts. See, so all depends on Phasa. And how can there be kusala Phasa and akusala Phasa, or vipaka Phasa, or kriya Phasa? See, the details are not known, but the truth is the truth. That's why so much to learn just to understand it as no one and no thing at all, as it is Dhamma, the reality which is there by conditions. Whatever arises has its proper conditions for its arising, even Phasa. everyone would like to contact pleasant objects through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body, and like to have kusala instead of akusala. But depending on conditions, the accumulation, the pakatupanisiya pajaya, the habits which has been accumulated on and on and on and on to conditions such phassa with right understanding of the object and phassa with wrong understanding of the object. That's why we learn just one priority to understand more and more that it cannot be taken for anything until it's there as condition to understand whatever is there. By conditions, that's all. No one is there. No one can condition it. So the truth is that what are there is no one and no thing. But what is there is conditioned to be such only, not other way or other thing at all. Like phassa now, it says already, see, who conditioned the phassa to contact the object which is seen? No one at all, because it's there all the time by conditions. And we learn to understand how come to see such and such different things, because everyone would like to see only present object because of one condition, karma, in the past condition, the moment of condition, the result of such karma. And the result is moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, or at moment of birth, at moment of bhavanga, keeping life goes on to experience on, and then again and again, 6 star ways. That's all. Even phassa, which experience that object with right understanding or wrong understanding, depending on the other cetasikas. That's right. What is known is just to understand the truth of actually there is nothing permanent at all and no one and no thing. There are different dhammas conditioned to be there and then gone. Nobody can change because of ignorance, taking it for something permanent and clinging to it. So it conditioned more and more moment of seeing, hearing, and life on and on and on. Until panya is there enough to directly experience the truth. Otherwise, the wrong understanding of self cannot let go, cannot be eradicated at all. So all depends on conditions. And right understand how much understanding of the truth at moment of hearing about what is there as it is, little by little. So
And Leanne, I think your question is this: can it be known? Can the conditions be known by which people experience different objects? You gave the example of the sound of thunder, right? Some people will hear it and others will not. Is that the kind of thing you're asking about?
Not really. I think it's more about whether fast, all my question arise because I heard from Sarah that there are many different objects, but why fasa contact a certain object for a certain experience? So I want to know whether there is influence from other cetasika, such as manasikara, because I'm thinking that's where direct the attention to certain thing, like Azita said, certain, like she's attracted to a nice flower, then, her saying they will direct her toward that direction rather than someone may be attracted to something else. That's what I'm just thinking.
That's one example, but another one we know from just our own experience in life, that if we are concentrating on something, like we're lost in reading a book or watching a movie, we may not hear the sound of the thunder, for example, that another person who is not so concentrated in the object because of attachment or whatever, we'll hear. So I think I'm going to say there are multiple factors at work here. And I just wonder whether it is useful in a sense to go into those, because what is the purpose is to have a better understanding of what does appear. But yes, I think the Buddha himself said that what one is interested in, that will condition, that'll be a condition for what one follows. So if one is interested in sights as opposed to sounds, for example, or colors, then that person will tend to notice more about those things just because that's the accumulated tendency. But in terms of actual what conditions are at work and what mental factors are at work, I think it isn't explained in the teachings because it's not actually relevant to a better understanding of what is actually appearing at the present moment. So it's somewhat speculative in that regard. But I think our experience in life shows us that there are a number of reasons why these differences can happen.
I'm
And
happy.
when we consider about the different conditions, like you said, by Sahajata connaissance, they all the Citta seekers condition each other and condition the Citta. But we have to consider why Passa is so often mentioned. And it's also because by Ahara Paccaya, Citta is the leader and by Ahara Paccaya also conditions the other Citta seekers. And Chaitana is Ahara Paccaya for the other Citta seekers, coordinating them. And Passa is Ahara Paccaya. So depending on what Passa contacts, everything is affected by it. All the other Nama Dhammas are conditioned by it. And then the Rupa, the nutriment, like Alberto mentioned, it's conditioned by being Ahara Paccaya. So little, by considering the way that different realities are conditioned in different ways, we begin to understand why, for example, it's mentioned that Passa is a condition for feeling when we read about Paticca Samuppada by Ahara Paccaya, not the other way round. Vedana isn't a condition by Ahara Paccaya. Manasikara isn't a condition by Ahara Paccaya, but they are conditioned by Passa and Citta and Chaitana that they arise with. But no Passa can arise unless it is also conditioned by the co-rising Citta seekers by Sahajata. So it's just the way to understand a little bit more about the arising of different dhammas in order to understand that no one's there, no one can attend, no one can contact anything, no one can decide anything at all, just different dhammas arising, conditioned in complex ways by so many different conditions.
Yep, I'm happy to leave it there so Azita can continue with her question.
It's a very good topic to bring up, Leanne. Thank you. Very good. Azita, come back to your one.
Yes, it was something I read this morning, and I should probably go back to it and read more clearly, but it was a condition Dhamma can condition the thing that that has conditioned it. It was something like that. And I didn't understand it. So and the query on DSG was, how can a conditioned Dhamma be a condition for what conditioned it? Does that make sense?
Well, what Leanne was just talking about is a good example. So the Phassa conditions the Manasikara and the other Cetasikas that arise with it and the Citta, and they in turn condition the Phassa and each other because they mutually condition each other. So that which is conditioned is also a condition in different ways for other realities. The seeing consciousness that arises now, which is conditioned by in all those ways that we mentioned, is also a condition itself for other realities, such as the Cetasikas that arise together with it.
Yes, of course, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. That was all my question was going to be about.
The lobha that was conditioned by previous lobha is a condition for more lobha. So every reality is a paccaya and a paccayopana. It's conditioning and it's conditioned.
Okay, thank you. Actually, one more. John, you just said something like what one is interested in can condition what one focuses on. And I think that's what I was sort of coming to this morning, you know, like that view of the lovely lake. If I didn't have an interest in lakes and the sun on it and blah, 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 I wouldn't have focused on it. Whereas somebody else who was not interested in that at all, but in the much bird life that was there would probably focus more on that. So I think that's answered that question for me, what you said. And
like a mother will hear the sound of her child among all other sounds before another person who's not so attached will hear that same sound. So one can see that what one is strongly interested in or attached to will condition to some extent what is seen or heard. It's only natural when you think about it. The person who is an avid photographer will see colors and shapes and pay more attention to them than a person who's not interested in that particular pursuit, just because that's their habit to do so.
And just following on from that, I think if there's more understanding and of those events, and then realizing that each and every one of us has a different focus, there could be more patience with someone who's completely, like, you might be walking along with someone and they'll stop and go, oh, wow, wow, wow. And it's like it's some impatience. But if there is knowledge of the difference within us, possibly more patience with that person and they with us, perhaps, maybe.
I think what is to be understood is the attachment or whatever it is there, not so much the sequence of events or the situation or occasion, but just understanding Dhammas as Dhammas, I think, is a condition for more patience generally with others, because one sees the conditioned nature of everything so much more.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
And understanding that it's just seeing, and a lot of attachment and thinking helps one to see how unimportant and how actually it's all dukkha, it's all unsatisfactory Like before, one might have thought there was something wrong with people who couldn't appreciate the beauty and so on, but now one appreciates that it's just lobha, regardless. Just like eating fine food or enjoying beautiful music, just different objects of lobha, that's all.
Second noble truth.
That's right.
Mm.
So more understanding, it's like that for everyone. Just lobha conditioning, different likes and dislikes, taking it for being pleasant and desirable when actually it's just different objects of that are dukkha. No matter how pleasant, how beautiful, it's still impermanent and gone instantly, not satisfactory in any sense, and dangerous, as Ajahn said, because it just arises and falls away, but it's the object of clinging again and again.
And as I said before, when we're talking like this, it does seem very pointless in clinging on to something that has disappeared already, but because it's uncontrollable. There's no self to stop that. There's just conditions for lopa to arise, and it will, or dosa or whatever, because there's no stopping what arises. It's arisen already before one knows it's there.
Yeah, you can't reason your way out of things.
That's another good comment. Yeah, thank you.
The accumulated tendencies are in control. They trump logic and reason and counting to 10 and everything.
And I think until that's really understood, even on the intellectual level, there's because self comes in all the time, wanting to control this and that. And I think until the fact that you can never control it, until that's known, understood, then we just go on battling the things we don't like and liking the things we do like.
And that knowledge can only come by direct understanding of different realities that are appearing. It can't come by just thinking about it, even by hearing it over and over. It's the knowledge of the direct understanding that has real effect.
Mm. Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what is the object of the understanding, which reality or realities. It's whatever object the awareness and understanding takes.
Kind of like I'll never be able to think my way out of samsara. There's knowing that there's something else that has to do it. I actually saw Anne turn up briefly. I haven't seen her for quite a while, but it looks like she has gone again.
I know last week she had a family function to attend, and she indicated that she may not be present.
Hello, Anne.
I hear you, Anne.
We can't hear you, Anne.
Hi, nice to see everybody. I've been in Toronto for a while now, and last week and the weekend before we're very caught up in family things. Last weekend having been Thanksgiving, on the, when the Thanksgiving festivities or whenever, when this is happening. But I was able to come tonight, which is great. And next week I'll be home in Vancouver.
Anything you'd like to bring up while you're here, Anne?
No, not today, thanks. I'm just really happy to hear the discussion.
Glad you could join.
Thank you.
Jonathan, may I ask you something? Hello.
Sure, go ahead, Maeve.
Well, just relating to the discussion that we've been having, and actually it was a continuation in some ways from Saturday night, where I think we finished on the subject of Aramanara Pachya. Just going back to that comment that you made about how we are drawn to what interests us. And I'm thinking about, in a discussion like this, or, frequently, when we're talking about visible object, I suppose there's been an interest in that cultivated over time through discussing and considering. And so I was wondering how important is Phassa in terms of developing understanding, like in terms of what it actually focuses on. Maybe and there's perhaps another part to that, and that is when we're thinking about visible object, we're obviously thinking about the concept of visible object. It's not a direct experience. So I think my question is somehow around what is the shift from just that consideration at that conceptual level to, I suppose, what is like the circuit breaker, and that is direct experience. What is it that Phassa, I suppose, is required to focus on to condition that? Sorry, it's a sort of a rather convoluted question, and it's a combination of things that I've been just reflecting on while I've been listening.
Right. Well, first of all, I think when we talk about being drawn to what we have an interest in, one is talking about habits and accumulated tendencies from way back. So that is when we talk about being interested in, for example, knowing more about visible objects, something we have discussed a lot, that is a different situation, isn't it? Because that's not something that we have as a natural habit. It's something, we would like to know more about, but we can't put it in the same basket as being drawn to colours or sounds or smells or something in those general terms. But to my understanding, the answer to your question is really not to do with Phassa, because Phassa just has a function in the moment, and it takes the same object as the citta. So it's not as though Phassa has a determining role, and nothing does. This is the weird thing, that there's no particular mental factor apart from panya that one can say has some kind of determining role in how things are seen. So to my understanding, it all comes back to just the development of understanding. That is, and we know the factors for these are hearing the Dhamma and considering it over and over again, and not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean hearing about visible object and just considering visible object, but just the whole general description of the way things are, the conditioned nature of realities and accumulated tendencies and so forth. And I don't think I can give any more specific answer than that, because if there was a more specific answer, we'd have heard about it.
Hopefully. So I suppose what also came up was in this situation where we actually do spend a lot of time considering realities at a conceptual level. Can we think about that as being wise consideration, or is wise consideration a different order of thinking, a different type of thinking that I suppose involves an understanding that is precisely what we're doing, where this is very much on a conceptual basis. Well, I sort of make that assumption, and I apologise to those in the group who are already enlightened.
Difficult to say, of course, because wise consideration is... Someone's got their mic on unwittingly. Wise consideration is just the consideration that accompanies any wholesome citta, kusala citta. Kusala citta. And of course, if it's kusala citta with panya, then it's truly wise consideration. But I would say that it's not possible to make a link and say that if one is reflecting on at a conceptual level about visible object, it's likely to be wise consideration, because it could be motivated by anything. So, and what I was trying to say earlier was, I think the condition for a better understanding of visible object is not necessarily more consideration about, at a conceptual level, about what visible object is. Yeah, because one doesn't know when awareness and understanding are going to take visible object, as their object. So the condition for generally for awareness and understanding to arise is just reflecting on the Dhamma generally, not necessarily specifically about what may be the object of awareness at the present moment.
Yes.
If that's helpful.
That is helpful, Jonathan, because it actually reminds me that a lot of this thinking that I've sort of just been describing is an attempt to try and unravel an understanding. You know, it's just a kind of a roundabout way of taking the same route of wrong effort, I suppose.
Yeah, subtle. It can be subtle.
Yes, and
wrong effort, can't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and sometimes it needs to be articulated to make that clearer, because otherwise it can get into a sort of a loop where it seems like the loop is going somewhere, but in actual fact, it's just thinking. You know, it's just.
It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that all that matters is having more awareness and understanding of something at the present moment. And that kind of thinking can lead one to just focusing on what is the object now, how will it appear, etc., etc., etc. So that's why I think it's more the hearing and considering in general terms that should condition eventually at some point some awareness and more awareness and understanding. And the other thing to keep in mind is that there may be moments of subtle or weak awareness and understanding that aren't apparent as such. And so that this is, of course, the simile of the adze handle. It can only be known over time that there is a better general understanding of the conditioned nature of things than one had previously. And that can only have come about because there has been at some level some kind of understanding, whether conceptual or direct or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But if it can be seen that the general trend is in the right direction, as it were, then I don't think it matters how much awareness and understanding that is immediately known as such occurs.
Yes. And of course, there's also some confusion between intellectual understanding and the nature of panya. And I think a lot of question, well, certainly from my experience, is around kind of satisfying that intellectual grasping or curiosity, or, you know, however it can be described. But it's yes, it's maybe that's an example of interest, you know, that there is intellectual or mental interest in things, and so there'll be an effort made to satisfy that because of that particular attachment or accumulation or whatever.
But I think all of us here, we have an interest in the Dhamma generally. Of course, we would all like to have more understanding, awareness and understanding, but we also have a genuine interest in what the Buddha has taught, because it appeals to us as something that makes sense, not just because we want to be enlightened or anything like that, even though that may have been a large part of it at one point of time. So that interest is there and will be a condition for hearing more, joining discussions, considering more whether during the discussion or afterwards, and both, of course. And so one can have some confidence that there must be moments of wholesome intellectual understanding occurring from time to time, even though they're not apparent.
Mhm. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Maeve. Maybe Ajahn would like to add something on that general subject.
What about Phassa right now? Is it enough to let it go as I, or not yet? See, just talk about it. Is it enough? Or when there's more understanding, whether can panya or other reality condition Phassa to arise? Because Phassa itself cannot arise alone at all by conditions. So if there is more understanding of that which is conditioned, there can be letting go, taking it for, I will try to have it Phassa on this and that, but all depends on conditions. That's why when we talk about anything, it's not enough yet, or it is a little more understanding so that it can let go, doubt about it, or what is it? Can panya condition Phassa to arise? Or does Phassa condition panya to arise? See, different question, different condition, or same conditions. More to understand about whatever is there, and not by ourselves or in our own intention or our own will, by conditions, even thinking like that. See, this is to have more understanding of what we talk about, conditions, to understand more. Actually, nothing can arise at all, no matter it is wholesome or unwholesome, or what we say, vipaka or kriya. But the understanding of the reality there can condition a little more, letting go the idea of self, because of understanding it as it is, little by little. Like, can panya condition Phassa? Or can Phassa just condition panya? Because Phassa arises with each moment of citta, any moment of an experiencing arising, there must be Phassa as a condition for its arising. But what conditions such Phassa to arise with such panya, or that very moment, no matter kusala or akusala, to understand more of no self and no one at all. Not just learning about the name and understand the way it is, but the moment when it's there, that it's conditioned. Why? Considering wisely, is there no Phassa there? Conditioned by what? So that it cannot be taken for I or anyone at all. Little by little.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it seems like it's enough to understand it. Actually, not at all. But it develops little by little to understand no matter what. It has its own proper conditions for the moment of its arising, just at that level, to be how wholesome it is and how unwholesome it is, to be by way of such and such moment as vipaka, result, or kiriya, see, or adhamas. And there can be more understanding by Phassa, condition the moment of the arising of the reality which experiences citta and citasikas, or are there as no self. At each moment, each different Phassa, only once in samsara and never to arise again. That's the understanding which begins to understand better and clear, little by little. No desire to get rid of it instantly, impossible. That's why just live to the truth of this very moment. Nothing is known directly yet. Or it begins, or it have conditions for its arising, even right now, not yet, but there are conditions to directly experience with understanding of what is there as it is, so natural, by conditions and by phassa as well. That's why understanding phassa, that which is not citta, not other cetasika, not sanya, not vedana, but it has its own characteristic, just as a reality. Nobody can change phassa to be vedana or sanya or citta or anything, to be true to the truth. It's just that which is there, performing the function at any moment of experiencing an object. It's there. And its function is different from citta and other cetasikas. And no one can stop its arising because there are conditions for each moment of its arising to be wholesome, unwholesome, vipaka or kiriya. To understand more about no one and no self. Not only the name, but the reality which does not appear now, but it depends on conditions. And we can say it depends on phassa too, for what arises and experienced. And this is the truth, the absolute truth of this very moment. To learn to understand it as not self. And right understanding develops, does not change, but have more confidence of the truth.
And Maeve, I think earlier we were talking about, Zita was saying how she appreciated that one can't think one's way around one's akusala tendencies, for example. And this is something that one comes to appreciate, not because one has read that all dhammas are conditioned. It's not repeating something one has read in the teachings or heard from someone. It's something that that one has reflected on and come to see that that's how it is, that accumulated tendencies are stronger than any exertion of will to the contrary. Mm. And so that's not particularly awareness and understanding of a specific conditioned Dhamma, but it is a level of appreciation of the way things are that has come to be over a long period of time, because we've all been studying the Dhamma for decades, and it wasn't from the outset that one had that appreciation. It's gradually come to be understood over time. And so there's probably more than we realize that has accumulated in the way of understanding at least an intellectual level, if not direct understanding level. Just because it happens, it creeps up unnoticed, as it were, and we haven't seen it happen, but it's there to be recognized if one thinks about it.
And there was something that a comment that you made a little while ago, Jonathan, about, well, maybe it was in the form of a question about what is relevant from the teachers to what appears at the present moment. And I suppose part of the considering that is brought to bear on that is by gradually developing a more accurate idea about what is relevant as opposed to what is, situational or,
As opposed to what one would like to know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think that sits with what you were just saying about what is the real situation that is there to be experienced.
Yeah, and another aspect of what we've just been discussing is that I think, as Sarah often points out, it's never the situation that's the problem, it's one's accumulations that are the problem. And that realization also only comes with some level of understanding of the way things are. Not because someone has said it so many times and you're picking it up and repeating it back. I notice we're getting close to the hour.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you,
Mary,
Ajahn.
for bringing that. Thank you, Ajahn.
Everyone.
Yes.
So, Deetra.
Thank you.
Hold the mic up, everybody.